Good morning. Here we are in the White Hart Hotel, Friday at the end of a fraught week. Partly because it's the last week in July and everybody changes their habits in August. So you have to start to adapt to it. The airport's jammed, the port's jammed, lorries and cars backed up at Dover and so on. And what that means is that in August, nobody is where they should be or doing what they are expected to be doing. Oh, I've got the hiccups. It's all your fault. Right.
I had the same thing this morning, actually.
Did you have the hiccups this morning?
Yeah.
Now, that picture looks pretty good. Did you do something?
No.
No, right. Okay. Well, we're...
Unfortunately, most of it is down to luck of the draw sometimes.
yes.
But we do have both pieces now for the Wi-Fi, so
hopefully it will be permanently improved after today.
Well, just in time for when we're not here.
Yes.
Next week we're doing the out the door broadcast all week.
Anyway, what is our first task of the day? It always is to look at the papers and to have a go at what's going on. So
I'll get it up.
Okay, well done. And of course, in a little while, the lovely Melissa Conti will be joining us from New York and giving us some idea of what is going on over there and some thoughts. It's interesting that she more or less accused the UK. I know that's putting it in strong terms because she's an Anglophile. She loves what she sees here. But she said that the Americans really don't understand why we're not getting excited about China. What raised its head in the debates this week between Sunak and Truss, but the question of China.
I'm always going on about China.
Sorry?
I'm always going on about China.
Well, you're not joined very much by anybody else. I'm amazed that we don't hear much about China.
China is, I think, in my opinion, the greatest threat that we face.
Well, a lot of people are now agreeing with you. But they've been so busy gazing up their own navels and worrying about
COVID.
And Christmas cakes
with
icing. You know, I mean, to be quite honest with you, the way that Parliament is in a mess, and it's in a mess of its own making, and it shot itself in the foot. And that is the measure of the people that we've got there. Right. Here we are. We've got all these issues which Boris was dealing with, and now he's not there to deal with them. We haven't heard from Boris in all week. 10 days we haven't heard from Boris. How are they able to handle these things is by throwing dirt at one another and muckraking in what should be a debate to let us know what each candidate stands for. As far as I'm concerned, all I can see is that they stand for throwing dirt at one another. I'm losing confidence hand over fist in the people that we've got as our, quote, leaders at the moment. It doesn't matter which party you're talking about, and for that matter, almost which country in the Western world that you're talking about. Everything is a mess, complete and utter mess. Where are our leaders? Where is leadership? Where are the people that we want to follow? Because we hear stirring speeches. We hear vision. Doesn't matter whether it's realizable. Doesn't matter whether it's rhetoric. But at least it stirred us to get cracking. And we're hearing none of that. None at all. Instead, one of the key issues that we've got is the rise in energy prices. Steep rise. Yesterday, it was announced that it'll be a minimum of £3,800 per annum to heat an average home.
Per what?
Mm-hmm.
You said £3,500 per what?
Per annum, per year.
Oh, per year.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
Not many people have that much spare to put it.
Exactly. And now the sort of thing that Stuart has been rabbiting on about is who is making the profits and who's making the money. The Daily Mirror leads off today, profits in misery. And what it's pointing out is that the big boys have announced their profits, one for 6 months, one for 3 months. And I think it's British Gas is the
1.3 billion. In
right,
profits.
yeah, no, it's Shell. Shell made 9.4 billion in just 3 months. British Gas is a measly 1.3 billion
in 6 months.
Yeah, and Centrica, which owns British Gas, has been piling on the agony as well. And we've still got some results to be announced. So yes, it is out of kilter. And the papers are at long last waking up to the fact that somebody somewhere is pocketing all this money. Now, the big companies have said, yes, we're paying stuff back to our shareholders. We haven't paid dividends for quite some time. We're trying to keep our shareholders sweet. But they also admit that some of these profits are quite huge. And although they won't use the word obscene, we will. Obscene, particularly at a time when everybody is struggling to meet the demands of these companies and pay for domestic gas and electricity, of course. Well, what a dilemma. And nobody really so far has come out with great answers, although one would expect comment throughout the day. One would expect it, and we'll keep an eye open for it. The Guardian, energy firms' profits surge, and it's an insult to working people. Don't know who said that, but that's the Guardian's headline.
The Guardian said that.
The Guardian says that. Well, yes, one would expect. Max is a young man just about to launch his career. You just have left college.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking on the might of the civil society now as a citizen and a worker. What's your reaction to the sort of environment in which the college is tipping you out, and which I and my colleagues and associates and peers, the world that we've actually got for you? What's your reaction to that world?
I'm not sure. I haven't fully experienced the real world yet, but my college experience was surprisingly good, actually. I wasn't. Usually, colleges and universities are just an indoctrination camp. You just get taught what to think and not how to think. My college was quite practical, so I actually learned how to think and wasn't told what to think. My college was surprisingly good at that. But I haven't experienced the real world yet fully.
Well, because you're in the job that you are at the moment, you see the headlines, you see what's going on in Westminster, you see what's going on in the White House, and for that matter, in Russia and Ukraine and so on and so forth. I mean, do you see it as an environmentally friendly world to people such as yourself just about to launch on life?
Not really, no. I think the media, a lot of it is fear-mongering. I think they're just trying to scare people.
After the scare, when you scrape away the headlines, because there's no question that the country is in a mess. How do you feel about it? Do you feel we've let you down?
Yeah, but I'm not really surprised that the politicians have done that. I can't say I'm shocked, but it's looking grim, the future for my generation. I'm not going to be able to buy a house. I'm not going to be able to buy a car quickly. The average, at the moment, the average house buyer is 38 years old. When you were my age, the average was 21, 22.
Yeah, right.
And by the time I'm 38, the average house buyer will be in their late 40s by the time I'm 38.
Yeah.
So it's really not looking good for me. And well, not just for me, but for all the generation that I'm in. Most of them I don't really care for my generation.
Okay. I mean, that's an interesting reaction to the present dilemma. I mean, if in fact you were given the crown of Prime Minister today and told make your opening statement, what would your opening statement be?
I'm not sure what my opening statement would be, but I know what my first policies would be. My first policies would be cut all tax by 50% across the board for everything, and cut spending by as much as possible, because I personally am more of a limited government person. But my opening statement, I don't know what that would be, but I know what my opening policies would be.
Right. Okay. Well, to some extent, I think that you would be very popular if you were going to cut taxes by 50%, you say?
Yep, across the board.
Across the board. 50% across the board. Of course,
I personally think taxation is theft.
Taxation what?
Is theft.
Right. Now, there are those that would say, and I would agree with you, that the less tax, the more that you actually encourage private enterprise and people to make money.
Yeah.
So even though you're paying proportionately less tax, in fact, taxes rise. The income from taxes rises because people are encouraged to make as much money as they can, and therefore that 50%, as opposed to whatever it is they're paying, it increases with the amount of income that they generate. So I think you would have some people who would be sympathetic to that. Well, let's go to the. No, I can see that it's the Star is the next paper up. Let's have a look at my gorgeous Daily Star. It's not actually leaving the energy crisis alone. And it's got a picture of the bosses of British Gas and Shell. And it's calling them scumbags, money-grabbing scumbags, it says. Oh, dear me. And it is not at all sympathetic to the bosses of the two companies that have declared their profits this morning. I would imagine there are some more coming along. They normally do it in groups, the energy sector. So those companies listed on the stock exchange.
It says gas prices, British Gas and Shell rake in sickening profits as millions face fuel poverty. People are probably not going to be able to heat their homes in winter. That's looking like a thing that's very likely to be happening. I've heard people say that we're going to be freezing to death, but then those same people also say we're going to burn to death in the summer due to climate change. Which one is it?
Yeah.
Which one is it?
Well, quite by accident, I turned on one of these disaster movies last night where everything went to 30 below zero and snowstorms and so on and so forth. It's quite interesting. People were being frozen to death where they stood. I hope that doesn't happen.
I think it'll be fine.
It'll be all right. Okay.
But no one's going to be freezing to death during the winter, unless, there will be.
There'll be some people that will be relatively cold.
Yeah. Have you seen like homeless people in like Scotland? How in the winter they freeze to death. That's a horrible way.
Yes, it is. It is.
There are people who say being homeless is a choice as well. I've heard that many times from different people. I'm like, what are you talking about? Homelessness is a choice. No, it's not. Are you choosing to freeze to death in the winter? I don't think so.
No, I think what they are saying is that, and unfortunately, it's always just a few, that there are some people who beg on the streets, who say they're homeless, and actually pack up their little stall and go home to a nice flat. I mean, there are documented cases of that. But generally speaking, you're quite right. Is nobody wishes to freeze to death? Nobody. All right, let's go on to the next paper, the FT, the Financial Times.
That's an interesting outfit.
Right. It is the Financial Times does take a more studied view of the profits that the major companies are making, and it says that Centrica is now paying profits to its shareholders, but also it's calling upon the government to offer more support to households hit by soaring energy costs. Now, the issue of paying out dividends, it's a tough one for these companies. Yes, on the surface, they made huge amounts of money, but they made that money by getting people to invest in them. In other words, old money bags to my left here might put £100 in and get 100 shares for it, if in fact they were a pound a piece, but let's pretend. But that eventually I bought those shares on the basis that it would give me a return. And I think the boss of the boss of Centrica,
I think so.
Yeah, the boss of Centrica is saying, look, out of this money that we got in, what we've got to do is we've got to pay our shareholders something, because they actually risk their capital, their money, to help us grow. And that is fair enough. I think what we're discussing here, or what we're looking at here, is what is a fair balance? What is a fair balance between the right to make as much money as you possibly can and have, quote, huge profits, and the responsibility to make sure that you don't do it over the bodies of the citizens? It's not an easy one. Okay, next paper. The I. It goes to a bit more scandal. Let's have some butter, silly nonsense scandal. Tory contest leak inquiry grows amid toxic fallout. Essentially, what the story says is that ministers are afraid at the moment to make any statements, because the supporters of Truss and Sunak are scouting around Westminster and getting hold of any comment whatsoever, or anything to do with the economy, and feeding it back to their favourite candidate. So people are going and finding people in Westminster in an unguarded moment, and they make a note of it, and they rush back and they tell, let's say, well, no, let's not say me, because that confuses the issue. But they're reporting back to either Liz Truss or Rishi Sunak what's being said, so they may be able to use it in their debates, and that really is well, I'm all for gathering information, but that's cheating a bit, chaps. That's a little bit cheating. Don't you agree?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Next paper. The Daily Express. Obviously, Liz Truss's call for law and order and to have a go at the bobbies and to see reform at Scotland Yard struck a chord with voters, and so Sunak has to catch up. And the Daily Express says, Sunak, I'll kick 5,600 foreign criminals out of Britain. Right.
Nice.
Yeah, it is a fact that where you open up your borders in a very humanitarian way to people who are caught up in wars and so on and so forth, it's quite often the first people on the boat are criminals, and they see new pastures and over they come, purporting to be from the country of our choice, who we have to be looking at. So I've got a sympathy for him understanding the situation, not so sure about what he can do about it, because these are powerful gangs, and they seem to have had their own way a great deal up until now.
Is Abu Hamza still in this country?
No, I don't think so.
No?
I think he's gone.
Okay.
Yes. I remember because about a year ago there was a scandal of how he was represented in court and so on, wasn't there? Yeah. Yes, there's another name that has slipped out of the headlines.
Well, at least he can't be called a racist for kicking the foreigners out because he himself is brown. Well, actually, on this topic, a similar topic, Rishi Sunak, I don't want him to be Prime Minister. But there is one good thing I've heard from him, which he would do a very good job at. No other conservatives have really spoken out about it. But Rishi Sunak said the other day that he would actually do something about the grooming gangs. He would solve the problem of grooming gangs, which I would love to see. The thing is, he would be very good for that job because he can't be called racist because he's brown. The problem with people, the reason these grooming gangs aren't being investigated is because these grooming gangs are of one specific ethnicity, really. And Rishi Sunak is that same ethnicity. So I think he would be good at that job because he can't be smeared in the media as a racist who hates Muslims. So I think he would be good for that job. But most of the others, he's not very good. But that one, I was glad to hear him actually say something about it.
We said we would see any sort of potential conflict of interest, and indeed a number of people who would supply us with information about these things would have some sort of personal. Well, how is it possible, really, to have the huge energy prices and not have a personal feeling about them, no matter what you may be saying and talking to? But this is the question of 5,600 foreign criminals. It's easy, good headline stuff, but how? How are you going to get rid of them? It's one of those things that it is not an easy thing. It's easy to say, but it's not easy to do.
Put them on planes to Uganda. That seems to be.
Well, I mean that was the one, wasn't it? Yeah. But you know, it's between saying what you want to do and actually doing it is a big gulf.
Yeah.
And I can remember in Northern Ireland, the head of an advertising agency said, we've been given the job of getting another 500, what was then the Royal Ulster Constabulary, I think it's now the Police Service of Northern Ireland or whatever, and that we have to run a campaign to recruit. And they said this campaign will cost a small fortune, and it probably will see 5 or 10. Whereas they're looking for 500, it will see 5 or 10. Because no matter how much money you pour into the advertising aspect of it and making it an issue up front, is people don't want to be policemen, particularly in the environment that was Northern Ireland in those given times.
Even today, people don't want to be police officers. I used to really want to be a police officer, and that was ruined. But if it hadn't have been, it would have been ruined by the 2020 riots and stuff and the way police are being treated.
Yeah.
Like, no one really likes the police anymore, especially after what happened in 2020. I've lost a lot of respect for the police personally as well for different reasons. But yeah, I wouldn't want to be a police officer ever.
Normally, one thing that I would never want to be, I'm absolutely sure. At the Times, child gender clinic forced to close over safety fears. All right, Max, this is your bag because you understand these things, and you said that was good news.
Yes, good news from the Daily Mail here. Unsafe NHS child gender clinic to be shut. So, do you know anything about these gender clinics?
No, I don't. In fact, this issue of gender change and so on and so forth is far above me. I am a wonderful bigot from the 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s, when my attitudes would have been formed. Actually, a real bigot. But I try to temper it with a sensible approach to matters. So I don't understand what these are. I can't make any comment. But luckily, I have to my left an expert in these things.
I wouldn't say an expert,
and has a
but
view.
I know,
Yeah.
I'm not an expert.
Okay.
I know what's going on.
Explain what these clinics do first of all. Max.
So these child gender clinics are giving drugs to children to stop puberty from happening, so they can grow up and be women. So they are giving, and these drugs are largely untested. Do you remember when Michael Jackson always had that voice, right? That's because his parents put him on hormone blockers, which is what has been given to children at these clinics to make him stay like a child and try to keep his voice for as long as they could. And then he went insane and died. This is what is happening in the trans community. A lot of these people are being given largely untested drugs, and it's driving them insane in a lot of cases. If over the age of 18, you can transition, you can do whatever. I don't care what you do. But when it comes to children they don't know what they're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yes,
especially
absolutely.
when it comes to 10, 11, 12-year-olds thinking that they're girls when they're really boys. They think that they know what they want at 12 years old. These are, just so you understand, these are life-changing, irreversible treatments. At 12 years old, could you make a decision that would change the rest of your life? Especially something like that.
I think you make the point. I don't think that I could.
Any child.
Or did, for that matter. Yeah.
No. Then the reason they're being called unsafe is because of the untested drugs, and they are trying to transition children. Transitioning is when you cut off your genitalia and have it rebuilt to look like the opposite sex.
Oh God!
And this is going on with children, not in England, but in Scotland. They still allow children to transition. We got rid of that. Some states in America allow children as young as 6 to start the transition. Children as young as 6. That's insane.
Indeed, it is. So, who promotes these clinics?
Well, it's part of the NHS.
So it's just a part of the.
It's a part of the NHS.
So it's the state.
Yeah.
Who is now questioning their use?
The public and the Conservative Party.
Right. Okay.
People like Pink News and people who are very liberal don't really question it. Just think, oh yeah, diversity, transgenderism, we're all in support of that. But when it comes to cutting off the genitalia of children, maybe we should slow down on that one. Maybe we should hold our horses.
Well, it seems to me that we should also be very cautious about what we're teaching kids at that age.
Yeah, I mean, I've been showing you some of the drag queen story hours at schools and libraries and things. Have you heard much about this other than from me?
No.
Well, they're teaching kids about how to be drag queens. Drag queens is an inherently sexual fetish. It is a sexual fetish. It's where they dress up where men dress up as women and be over the top. And it is an inherently sexual thing. And they're teaching this to children. And they're reading stories to children about gender and inclusivity. Not to say that inclusivity is a bad thing, but when it comes to this sort of thing we're talking about, it's questionable.
Yes.
It's questionable.
And it seems that this is going to be closed down.
Yeah, there's many all over the place in the country, but there only seems to be this one Tavistock clinic, but there's many all over the world.
All right. Okay. Now, I've been enlightened. I mean, I didn't really not pay much attention to this issue. But I must say that I find it rather alarming if people are able to just get on with it. But to do it within the NHS. Seems to me that some investigation should take place there.
Yeah, that's your tax money, first of all, that are paying for cutting off the genitalia of children.
Well, we learn something every day.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the many reasons I'm not a very big fan of taxes.
Right. Okay. Next program, the Daily Mail.
We just spoke about that.
That's right. It's but let's tell people what's on the front page.
Oh, the front page of the Daily Mail was, we just spoke about unsafe NHS gender clinics to be shut down. Just clinic, not clinics. So only one is being shut down out of the many in this country. So that's from the Daily Mail.
All right. That's one of our constant watchers as far as racing is concerned is I've forgotten his name.
What?
But we'll come back to that when the old grey matter gets going, and we can pursue the issue. Right. Okay. What's next up?
From the Daily Telegraph, NHS faces crackdown on puberty blockers. So that's where medication is given to children to stop them from going through puberty, to make the transition easier, so you're more feminine or more male.
Does the story say these clinics are going to be closed down altogether, or just some things that they sell?
Some things that they sell, and one clinic is being shut.
Right.
Just one.
Yes. So a token situation.
Yeah, I think they should all be shut down.
Okay. Incidentally, it's 9:03 for those people who are interested, and it's going to reach 25 today with just a gentle breeze. A little bit of scudding cloud, but not a lot. A rather pleasant day if you like summer. Right, the Metro. It appears that the lad culture at Scotland Yard is still prevalent, and that those people involved in Sarah Everard is her murder have been sending silly, lewd suggestions surrounding that event, and I think the Metro is saying enough is enough.
Yeah, the Metro's headline is "Vile Texts of Sarah's Killer Police Pals." So his friends in the police force were sending vile messages.
Right.
Apparently, I haven't seen the messages. I don't know what they are.
So the same copper who comes and helps the little old lady across the road is somewhat divorced from the image of what things really are like. Not a very happy situation at all. The Metro. No, that's the story that we just did. The Sun. The Wags fight is much ado about nothing. But Rebecca Vardy, the wife of the Vardy of Leicester football fame, and Colleen Rooney. Rooney needs no introduction to anybody, whether you're interested in football or not. Had a big court case recently, and when she said this and I said that and you said the other and so on, it got, in my opinion, dragged out of all proportion. But nonetheless, the Sun has always looked for stories that aren't going to get involved in the controversies of the politics. This particular story says that Rebecca Vardy's Liberal associate or employee was given another.
I'll read the headline.
Yeah.
Judges won't reveal verdict of Colin and Becky, so they don't attempt to leak it. Right.
Well, apparently, stuff that is supposed to be confidential has been leaked and being fed by the supporters of either Sunak or trusts, so that they can have a go unexpectedly with things that perhaps are considered secret on every program that we do, actually, or any program anybody does. But basically, that sort of briefing has got to stop, it says, I think. And I'm mixing two stories here. Gagatha is the Rooney versus Vardy thing, and it's just a straight wags fight, and it went to the High Court. And
I'll be honest, this story seems like the most uninteresting.
You're
story.
absolutely right. But to those people who have been following it, is the judge is withholding judgment because he's afraid that some of the evidence is tainted. I mean, that's what it boils down to. Okie dokie. It is 9:07. And now it's time for us to, I think for one thing, what we'll do is we will take a little trip to the park. We've been with you for 3/4 of an hour, hammering away at some straightforward issues and some complex. And I have to say that my mind isn't working quite as hard as it, or as functioning quite as well as it normally does. But let's take a break with our own version of the Potter's Wheel. Max has just mentioned that earlier in the week, he noted a story about Mike Tyson, the former world heavyweight champion. I mean, one of those that you remember, not forget, was quite ill. And he's just picked up this morning a status report.
So, yeah, a couple of weeks ago, a story came out. He was quoted as saying, "I don't have much longer left to live," and now he's being seen with a walking stick this week, and he's not looking great. He's only 56 years old, so he's not old really, and was one of the world's best athletes. So what's happened? I don't really know. He hasn't announced anything. But that would be a real shame to see him go because he was very good and still is.
Yeah, he had the reputation of a vicious infighting, as I recall, in the ring. But outside, he was quite charming and
he
a decent sort of chap.
Yeah, it's really strange. He went through a lot. I mean, he had a period where he went to prison for a couple of years because I can't remember what it was. I think he bit someone's ear off.
Oh.
Yeah, he
I think you're right. Yes, I think you're right.
And he had a crazy period where he was buying lions and taking them for walks, and he had like 5 Bugattis, and just going crazy. And then sort of chilled out and does his own podcast now and goes on shows I watch. So it's a real shame to see him probably be not like he's probably going to die soon,
Right,
which is a shame.
Now, what's your view of the Lionesses? certainly their success has changed a lot of attitudes. The Lionesses, the England football team, the ladies football team, who are in the final on, I don't know if it's Saturday or Sunday, but certainly this weekend. It's astonishing to me how all sorts of people perk up with success. But when people are, or teams or whatever are building, is they get barely a nod from these people. But the England ladies football team is on the verge of actually taking a great global prize. Yes. No.
I've literally never watched a football game in my life. I've never watched any football game in my life. I find it so boring. But hopefully we win the European Women's Cup. I don't really know. I mean, they're just down the road, actually, aren't they?
Yes.
They're at Brighton.
Yes, they
Stadium,
are. Actually, one of the things about ladies football is that the Lewis Rooks, the local Lewis team, which is semi-professional, has been very, very forward-looking. And it was the first club anywhere in the United Kingdom to give parity to their lady players and their male players. There's no difference, no differentiation between the lady footballers and the men footballers, and they are known for that. And I think that was very daring, and it's to be really commended that something like that could happen. And happen, I mean, this is now spread nationally, and it all started in Lewis, which was rather good.
Here's the thing: when it comes to the women's football team complaining about equal pay, when they say this, like, oh, we aren't paid the same as men, we just sort of have to sit there and pretend we don't know what the answer is. Oh, gee, I wonder why that is. It's because no one really goes to women's football games. They don't make the same money, so they don't get paid as much.
Yeah.
And that's why they're paid less, not because they're women, because no one watches them. Mostly people are watching the Women's World Cup right now, but yeah.
Well, if you've got a ticket to Wembley for this final, you can make a fortune if you wanted to sell it on the black market. There's not one single seat left, apparently. Yeah. So it's really taken off in many respects. I'm a bit like you. I don't watch much football on television. I understand that it's a good game and there's a lot of skill, but
did you used to watch it?
Well, yes. I mean, I would have watched a bit more than I do, although my sacrosanct bit is the Six Nations rugby. That I will not miss for anybody. I go and join a couple of pals, and we bemoan the fact that England look as if they're going to lose yet again. But that's a sport that I do follow, and particularly at the time of what's fondly known as the Six Nations, the six being us four, France, and Italy. And they are now talking about expanding it, I think, to Romania and one or two more Eastern European sides who are now developed to the point where they can compete internationally and do. So that's what that's all about. Have we got what's the next paper we got?
We did all the papers.
We've done all the papers now.
The headlines are done.
Right, all the headlines.
I do have some extra ones.
Right.
I don't, this hasn't been covered widely in the news for whatever reason, but a couple months ago, about 4 or 5 months ago, did you see that they cured AIDS?
Cured AIDS?
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen that. And I think that's quite an important story. So tell us what they're saying.
So about 4 months ago, everyone, I saw it when it first came out, but it was just no one even spoke about it. They cured AIDS. They found the cure. And now there's a new AIDS variant out, which they don't have a cure for now. Just as they make the vaccine just in time to cure AIDS, there's a new variant.
Yes.
Sound familiar?
Yes, indeed. But the vaccine has been developed.
Yes.
And is what is the reaction from any segments of our society?
There really hasn't been. Like I said, no one really has heard anything about this.
Yeah.
Which I thought this would be like the world's biggest news, and I just saw nothing about it. And then I've seen today a BBC headline saying that the fourth patent has been made for the HIV cure. So there are four different people who have made patents for curing AIDS. So
Right. Okay.
that's interesting.
It
I
is
think.
indeed. In fact, I have to say that it's not all negative, because as we've chatted away over the last 3 or 4 weeks about a lot of these controversial issues, is a bit by bit, we've noticed that the establishment have started to either realign their view of them, or in a couple of instances, taken active steps to bring them back online. There we go.
I have another story here from
Okay.
My London. London Underground needs another £1 billion bailout just to keep the tubes and buses running for the next year. They need £1 billion bailout for the next year. And they're striking right now, complaining, "Oh, we're not having a pay rise." It's like it's not profitable. There's no profit. You can't get a pay rise, so we're going to have to bail them out once again.
Yeah.
So
And you resent that as a youngster, do you?
I resent bailouts in general. I think if a company is failing, then your company's failing. Hopefully a better one will come along and not make the same mistakes as you, and instead of just getting bailed out, and you make the same mistakes again and again and again to get billions from the government.
Well, there are instances, I think you're absolutely right, of this. It is a key issue, and I think he's going to keep an eye on it. Right, what else have you got for us? What other goodies have you got?
BBC News, probably fear-mongering again. The headline here from BBC News: Kim Jong-un says North Korea is ready to mobilize nuclear forces. So Kim Jong-un is ready to use nukes,
Right?
Supposedly. If his nukes even work, that is, because it's not a very advanced country, North Korea. Just as this whole Russia and Ukraine threat is going on, the Russia-Ukraine crisis, and then the China crisis, now we're going to have the North Korea crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So everything's a crisis.
Okay. That's a look at the papers. I said the weather is going to reach 24, 25 degrees today. A light breeze. Never sure about the breezes, because they say a light breeze and one lifts my hat off.
It's 21 degrees
right now it's 21 degrees. That's pretty warm in itself. So that's climbing, because the time right now is still only 9:20. And it's already quite warm out there. Why am I wearing this, you say? Well, actually, strangely enough, we almost sit in a refrigerator, because the walls are so thick in this hotel, which is the White Hart Hotel in the centre of Lewes. Is the extremes of heat and cold are protected. The heat doesn't quite get through, so you've got some shade here, and the other is in the winter. It has the opposite effect. It shuts in the heat and won't let the cold in. Not bad, except that if you've got in between stuff, or for instance, you like to predict, I'm going to do this, or have a dinner party or whatever, on a given day, you like to make sure that the weather is going to be conducive to that if you're going to do it outside. So that's that. Anything else for us, Max?
I'm looking through the back pages of the Daily Mail now. Do you want to play something?
Yes. Let's play something, shall we?
I do have a story, but I'm trying to find where it
okay. Let me see if I can find a nice little shorty. Here's one, Intro to Model Railways. In the past, we've used model railways in a combination of real railways and some touristy stuff to highlight what it's like in various parts of the world. And here, it would appear we've got the intro to that. Let's take a look. There we go. Yeah, you can see it.
All three clubs convene for prototypical operating sessions, where trains are created and dispatched on schedule runs to deliver freight to various industries. They use digital control systems, and all three feature beautiful, realistic scenery.
We're out.
Yeah.
Well, that was very short. It shouldn't be that short.
It was. It said it was only 1 minute and 30 seconds long.
Oh, right. I took my face and my nose off the scene and let it run because I thought it was going to run for much longer, and I was sort of full of contemplation there. But then you can see a pose of contemplation of how I think during these programs. No, I don't. I struggle to stay awake early in the morning, and I've had to get up at 5 o'clock just to make sure that I'm here and we've got things underway. And sometimes I show it at the end of a week, and I'm showing it. I'm getting him to do most of the work. Okay, right. Did you get anything up while we were showing the trains?
Yes, I did. This was the story I was looking for. Have you heard of someone called Leah Thomas, a transgender swimmer?
No.
Well, this has been quite controversial within the last couple of months. Leah Thomas, she is a transgender swimmer who is a biological man, and got a world record for the women's world champion of swimming, even though she is a man.
Right.
So she beat the world record in her first attempt. She beat the world record by 8 seconds.
Ooh.
That doesn't sound 8 seconds doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're talking about the world record, that's a lot.
Yeah.
But that's because she's a biological man. People think biology doesn't exist. It's weird. People in my generation. But the thing is, there is a biological difference between men and women. There's a perfect example. 8 seconds on her first attempt, and she recently had her world records taken away from her, which has been quite controversial as well, because she is a biological man and she hasn't gone through any of the surgery to transition to a woman, so she is a full man.
Right. So in her case, she said, I say I'm a woman and therefore I'm a woman.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I did see something online which amused me quite a lot when she had the world record taken away from her. Someone commented below when she had a world record taken away from her. Someone commented, "That's horrible. That's horrible. She worked her dick off to get to that position."
Somebody had a cute sense of humor, that's for sure.
When I saw, I didn't come up with that. I saw a comment online. I could not stop laughing.
Right, Max, it is now 9:27. Shall we take a little break and while we're waiting for Melissa, or do you want to carry on?
End the show and go to the second show?
Yes, or shall we carry on? What we could do is I found some old stuff in the libraries.
We could do that.
And we I mean, it's quite long, but it's easily stoppable if you understand me. And there is I need. Let's see. I think it was this one. Let's try that one, and see where it gets us.
To say that the old man likes to tell many stories. Trust me, I know. I've heard all of them. However, I'm never sure if he's telling the truth or not. Here is another story, all the way from Canada.
The Wild Colonial Boy. Well, I disappeared to Canada when I was 18. And what an adventure I had over there. Oh, I've had lots of adventures in my life, and as I tell more stories, some of them will be set in Northern Ireland, some in the Balkans, some in Russia, some in Africa, many different stories, some sad, some funny, some interesting, I think. But while I was in Canada, I used to earn a few bob after I became a journalist, because in those days, even there, and it wasn't anywhere near as bad as it was here in the 70s, you needed to have a union ticket to read the news. So I held a union ticket. That union ticket also allowed me to appear in movies, so I made extra money from being an extra. That's jolly good fun. You rub shoulders with the stars. They haven't a clue who you are. And they're very polite, most of them, but they say yes, no, whatever. But generally speaking, is they don't care, and why should they? They don't give a hoot. But it is good fun, and I mean, I was making $80 for an extra there, and when I did the same thing in Belfast, I got £80. So £80 is about $110 or so. Not a fortune, but enough to go and have a few drinks, and it was absolutely marvellous, terrific money. One movie that I was asked to be an extra in was Carnal Knowledge with Anne Margaret. Isn't that it was the first supposedly daring film to do with sex. Oh, no, it wasn't pornographic. But we had to appear at parties and so on and so forth. So the shots were taken. I think I was on that particular film for about 2 days. And it's a good experience, a great experience. I would never have not wanted to do it. But The shooting finished, and I think I was supposed to appear at a cocktail party and again walking along the street or whatever. I can't really remember exactly the scenes, but none of them were pornographic, I can tell you that. A few years later, not too many years later, I was working in Belfast, and a new director came. And I looked, and I knew his face. And as you often do, you start to search together. Where have we met? And we tried to think in the UK and so on and so forth. And then he suddenly said, because I was a director at CBC in Vancouver, I said, I worked for the CBC in Vancouver. Who did you work for? And we went down that route, and eventually we discovered that there were people jointly that we knew, and that we'd started to do movies, and he'd been an extra. And he said, I loved it because I made all this extra money. And I said, which film were you in? And he said, I appeared in Carnal Knowledge. I couldn't resist the line. I said, there it is, John. I didn't recognize you with your clothes on. Well, you don't get a chance to deliver lines like that very often. But anyway, the story continues because, embarrassingly, I found myself in Maine. And I had got used to using this little story as an after-dinner tale, which I did. And there were half a dozen well-meaning Americans, very nice people in the group, and they said, you were in Carnal Knowledge? And I proudly said, yes. Later in the day, I got a phone call to say, you've been invited to a cocktail party tonight, and somebody has found a copy of Carnal Knowledge. We can all watch it together. So indeed we did, and the movie went on and on and on, and it ended no sight of me or of John, my pal. We'd ended up on the cutting room floor. So our great appearance in the first sexy movie to come onto the big screen was a disaster. Not only were we left on the cutting room floor, but after boasting about it, I had to sit through and uncomfortably say, oh dear, they must have cut the scenes. It sounded as if I was telling absolute porkies. Well, I'm not. I appeared in Carnal Knowledge. On the video version anyway, I lay, not naked, on the cutting room floor. And unfortunately, that's where I will remain, because I don't think the television version will show any of the scenes that I was in. My stardom from that has ended. It's dried up. It ain't there anymore. But just to finish this little story about appearing in films and so on is what happened, particularly being front of camera in any area, particularly in Vancouver, and I suppose perhaps a little bit with the gloss of being a semi-film star, I was out at Exhibition Park one night, which was the racecourse. And because our radio station broadcast the races, I was able to have a box. And I sat in the box and started to enjoy the evening. And a couple of people went by, and one of them said, hey Keith, I understand that you were filming the other day, you're an extra. And I shouted back, yes, I said, one of my autographs now is worth 3 of John Wayne. And I heard a little ripple behind me, and I looked behind me, and who was there? Yes, the big man himself. My God, the film industry has left me with embarrassment all over the place. He was very gracious. He grinned and he waved. I didn't dare ask for his autograph. But being a film extra has its benefits when you look at the bank account. So my next tall tale, Toodlepip.
Carnal Knowledge. Jack Nicholson, Anne Margaret, Art Garfunkel, and Candice Bergen in Mike Nichols' Carnal Knowledge. Now its time has come.
He sat on the bank while the river still chattered onto him, a babbling procession of the best stories in the world. That was the excitement that Mole experienced in the story Wind in the Willows. And indeed, rivers large and small everywhere all have many stories to tell. The River Ouse that flows through Lewes is no different. In fact, for much of the town's history, it has played an important part. Today, the river carries nothing but pleasure craft. But for a long time, it was a busy, bustling port. About a mile upstream from here is the village of Hamsey. It sits on a triangle of land which splits the river as it curves down towards the town. Hamsey is barely a village today. A few houses with the 13th century church standing in splendid isolation. But Hamsey was a Saxon port in the pre-Norman era. Historians estimate that over 1,000 people lived here, populating a port that saw ships sail up the Ouse to trade goods. There is no doubt that the Normans had a bit to do with its demise. The area was handed over to a Norman lord. But the community was attacked by an enemy it couldn't stop. An army of rats, which disembarked from one of the visiting ships, went ashore and infected the village with bubonic plague. The Black Death. The disease devastated Hamsey. And while there is no historic evidence, legend has it that the residents barricaded themselves in to prevent unaffected people coming in and diseased people getting out. Eventually, they starved to death. Named after the black rats which carried the plague, the Black Death killed over half the population in Britain between 1348 and 1349. The survivors founded another village off Ham, the modern thriving village of Opham. The plague attacked Lewes several times over the following centuries, each time causing significant loss of life. So death continued to stalk Lewes, bringing tragedy to the high street in rather greater measure than other UK high streets. Hamsey gone, but Lewes as a port flourished. Ships and barges plied their trade up and down the Ouse, creating an exciting and bustling waterway. Many of these buildings, which stand on an extension of the high street in an area called Cliff, are built with old ship's timbers. Where Argos now stands was a sailor's pub called the Bear, built as a brewery in 1787, and it succumbed to the carelessness of revelry and burned down in 1918. This quiet domestic street, which runs for a short distance parallel to the Ouse, was the sailors' playground, and history relates that there were more than a dozen brothels successfully operating. Today, this street is known as Little Chelsea. Even the name makes it seem a nice place to live. The rather small abodes have found favour with many modern Louisians and are now favoured homes. And why not? They look good in a twee kind of way. And if you're not living in a former brothel, there are other historical backgrounds to raise the interest. All this talk of pubs and trading around town, it saps my energy. So I sometimes come to this little oasis. The Notts Garden in Southover Park. A lovely little hideaway. Back to the High Street, or at least its extension into the cliff area of Lewes. So I've been wandering around here because Lewes is full of antique stores and models. As I mentioned, go inside some of these shops and you'll find that they're supported by old ship's timbers. Another reminder of the days when Lewes was a port. All this talk of water has made me thirsty. I made several mentions of the time Lewes had 63 pubs. As you would expect, among the 16 that are left, there are some with strong ties to the community. Over the road from the shops, held up by ship's timbers, is the Gardener's Arms. There seems to be a tradition in Lewes, although no one admits to it, of omitting the epithet pub or tavern. This pub is called by locals simply the Gardeners. And the Gardeners it was. The origins of this pub go back to when it was an ordinary house, owned by a gardener. Often, after work, he would invite other gardeners into his front room for a drink. Eventually, it made sense to formalize the ritual, so it turned into a pub. The Gardeners is a true pub. Unusual now, it only serves pork pies and sausage rolls. Yet each year it's in the top tier of finalists for Pub of the Year. Magnificent. Back to the Street of 1,000 Brothels. Well, perhaps not 1,000, but a few anyway. There's a pub called the Snowdrop. Nice pub, they tell me. Interesting for its name and where it stands. This is the site of England's deadliest avalanche. Just after Christmas in 1836, heavy snow built up on the edge of the downs. There were 7 cottages here where the pub now stands. Despite warnings, the people living there went about their business, totally unconcerned about the snow. Then whoosh, down it came, demolishing 7 cottages and taking the lives of 8 people. Time, gentlemen, please. Not heard now, but the admonishment of past landlords that it was time to quit drinking should have been heeded by the cottagers. A disaster both for the country and the town. A brief mention of one last hostelry, the John Harvey Tavern. Named after the founder of a local brewery, the one of 16 to survive to the modern day, Harvey's has been around since at least 1790. And an important inhabitant. Along with Mole and Ratty on the banks of the River Ouse. More on that later. For the moment, back to the bar. How I wish I'd lived in Lewes when it had 63 pubs. Bliss. You might think, from the pubs I've been into, that Lewes is a drinking town. The town constable in the late 1800s didn't think so. The town constable in 1890 didn't want it to be. Here are some notes from the High Constable of Lewes, a gentleman called John Holman, dated 1880. Sunday, the 10th of October, visited all the public houses during morning service. All in good order, except Lewes Arms, several there tippling in service time. Sunday, the 17th of October, visited public houses, all in very good order, except the Lewes Arms. Again, a second time, several persons in both parlour and taproom tippling at 11:30 o'clock, time of divine service, gave the landlord a caution. Sunday, the 14th of November, visited public houses as usual, witnessed very great indecency in the person of George W. Several persons were tippling during divine service, and on our approach to do our duty, they were permitted to hide themselves upstairs in the pub. This was the third or fourth offence of the same kind. Wow, bit different today. But beer is very close to the hearts of this Sussex town, because it's one of the main employers and industries. Earlier, I mentioned the John Harvey Tavern. John Harvey started his brewery on the banks of the River Ouse in 1790. He was one of the 16 that flourished here at one time. Now, with just the odd microbrewery popping up here and there, it's the only one. The brewery is close to the hearts of the community. The pubs it owns have in the main remained traditional, while its method of delivery has most definitely remained in the past. Miles Jenner is the chief brewer, and his range of beers reflects the activities of the local community. The dray that trots around town is a symbol of the tradition of the brewery, but also of the town. The beer maker turns out beers named after local events: Firecracker, Tom Paine, Bonfire Boy, and Lewes Castle. The name Harvey, synonymous with Lewes. You've been around, or the brewery has been around for quite a long time. Can you develop a little bit of the history for us?
Yes, the family came down, the Harvey family, from London. They were wine and spirit merchants at the end of the 18th century, and they started brewing in Lewes and on this site in the early 19th century.
I can stand next door to a man in a pub in Lewes, and he will swear that Harvey's tastes quite different to anything else, and he won't drink anything else. I mean, what's the secret of the product?
Any brewer's beer is really a derivative of his water and yeast strain. We never talk of water, we talk only of liquor, but a local water supply and the brewer's yeast strain it gives his beer an individual character. You could take our recipes, exactly the same raw materials, go and brew at another brewery with their water and all their yeast and have a totally different brew at the end of it.
Talking of water, and you mentioned that the barges came up the Ouse. How important was that to the brewery in the past?
Well, I think it was very important. It was, a fundamental form of communication, and if you were bringing a fair few tons of barley upstream, then it was a very sensible way of delivering. But just as industry sent stuff out to the river, so the river sent stuff back to them, and it wasn't unusual to brew with river water around your feet. And the last big flood we had in 2000, we were 6 foot deep in river water. We got our product together very well, we had a good reputation, the brewery was re-equipped, and we were producing a beer which became very much identified with the local community and was dear to their hearts. The fact the building is actually known as Lewes Cathedral tells you something about the way that Harvey's is viewed in Lewes.
The brewery flourished, but Lewes as a port rapidly declined. The familiar barges that had plied the River Ouse in the early 19th century carried loads of clay to the town. But the clay was used to build the beds for railway lines, and the death knell for river traffic sounded. The ships had consigned themselves to history. The first train to run from Lewes was in 1846. Since then, the railway has become an important junction in the national network. Trains from Lewes Station run to Brighton in the west, Hastings in the east, Newhaven Port in the south, and London in the north. There have been successes and failures. Other lines were axed over time, with one, the Bluebell Railway, preserved as a steam preservation project. Back to our tale of the High Street. Cliff High Street is an extension of the High Street ending at the base of the Downs. At the end of it is an ancient church, St. Thomas of Becket. The Black Death wasn't the only medieval disease to strike Lewes. Leprosy was rife. This infectious and unsightly blight is first recorded in Lewes in soldiers who took part in the Battle of Lewes. It seems that the monks of the priory tended leprous people in 2 hospitals. Of the larger hospital, St. Nicholas, little remains, but the smaller hospital of St. James also treated lepers. Bones of the hundreds who died in the Battle of Lewes showed that leprosy was widespread. Don't wear this hat to look pretty, you know. There's a Sherlock gene in me somewhere that gets me into more trouble than enough. So I'm going to stick my head above the parapet and suggest that there's evidence of leprosy here long before the Normans paddled ashore at Hastings. The Church of St. Thomas of Becket in Cliff, that's the very far end of the High Street, up against the Downs, has a leper's slit. This was a channel built into the church wall, so that lepers could take Holy Communion without infecting the congregation. St. Thomas's is a very ancient church, with bits of it predating the Normans by quite a few years. The interesting thing about this slit is that it starts and ends inside the church itself. Additions were made to the church over the years, so it appears that the leper's slit was built into the original church, but encompassed within it as it was enlarged. Certainly leprosy entered Europe about the 4th century, but was only virulent in the 11th. But it seems that the disease was already in Lewes well before that. Anyway, the Cluniac Priory tended to lepers until a certain king's greed and love life shut the priory down. So leprosy could be added to the Black Death as a scourge of Lewes. But let's shuck off the historic events of bloody Lewes and celebrate the river, the way that our friends in Wind in the Willows did, the lovable Mole and his friend Gung-Ho Ratty. Each summer, a raft race is held on the Ouse by the local round table. Teams from organisations, schools, businesses and even groups of individuals construct weird and wonderful rafts and race each other from Lewes down to the sea at Newhaven. Not a very fair race. The crews bombard each other with flour and water bombs, water pistols and any other old rubbish. Spectators add to the mayhem by pelting other missiles at the crews.
The first few hundred meters are quite torrid, because from the bridges here, people hurl flour bombs and eggs and all sorts of things at you, really. But when you get past Lewes, it's quite peaceful and serene down the river, and you've got the tide to help you along as well. Last year the theme was the Rio Olympics, so again it was quite open to interpretation. You could just take Brazilian culture or, of course, the Olympics. I actually took part last year. I duly sank in Newhaven Harbour, unfortunately. But obviously we put the proper safety provisions in place, and we were fished out before we were swept out into the English Channel. There's been suggestions this year that there will be pirate rafts and people drinking rum and trying to board other people's boats, but we'll see how that happens. We're limited for safety reasons to 25 rafts. In the next number of weeks, we're going to have talks with all the safety bodies, and perhaps we may be allowed more, but obviously safety is our main priority. This year I've been absolutely inundated with applications. I think I've sent out over 100 application forms.
Wow! Now, how do you select which of the 25 are going to be lucky?
It's down to, in a lot of cases, the event is sponsored. So in many cases, with sponsors may get priority, but overall it's just a lottery really, and or the best rafts will be chosen.
Now, in fundraising, do people just donate, or what do you do? Do you have people shaking cans?
There's a certain amount of bucket collections, and also there's an entry fee for the raft race itself. A good portion of that money goes to the actual operational costs of providing the safety provisions and so on. But obviously, whatever's left over will go to the local charity.
Right.
This year, we're also in partnership with New Haven Town Council, because they really wanted to get more involved, because obviously it finishes there. So this year we will be supporting a charity in Lewis and a charity in New Haven.
A lot of people line the banks. Do you take an estimate of how many people are here on a good Sunday?
We would estimate maybe 5,000 to 7,000, but we've no way of telling really. But it seems to be a very popular event, and the people of the town are taking it to their hearts.
Yes, indeed they have. I mean, it's a wonderful occasion. After all the bloodshed and death in this little town, that regatta makes me feel a lot better. Time for a little nap, I think. Well, there we are. There we go. The raft race, which takes place this coming Sunday. That was a raft race of 3 or 4 years ago, but equally as colourful, we hope, this year. And do go along and take a look at it. I think it's from about noon onwards. We have been in touch with the organisers and haven't really got much joy, but there you go. They undoubtedly anticipate that people will know from previous years. Right, you've got a couple more stories, young Max.
So I found this one in the Daily Mail paper. For a change, the tree huggers actually make a difference, in my opinion. There's a story here: standoff over doomed 600-year-old oak tree. There's this 600-year-old oak tree that they want to cut down to build a motorway. I am actually in favor of Greenpeace activists this time, which is rare. It shouldn't be cut down.
Where is this?
This is in Peckham.
Peckham?
Oh, no, not Peckham. Sorry, hang on. I have no idea how to say that word. Yeovil. Yeah, what the hell?
It sounds like Welsh.
Must be.
Yeovil. Aha. No, that's in the West Country, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Yeovil. And so it's the old thing, you know. I mean, this has been going on for yonks ever since people started to build motorways. And activists have quite rightly fought to keep beauty spots and so on.
Yeah.
Because developers, and actually governments don't know, they lose track of these things. Developers take the attitude is cut it down and then find out whether we can afterwards. And of course, then it's too late to put it back. So the old motorway versus environmental stuff, and there are activists down there trying to stop them.
Yeah.
What are the activists doing? Does it say?
Tying themselves to trees.
Oh right. Oh yeah, the old really militant activists. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think the 600-year-old tree should be cut down for the sake of a motorway.
Indeed, I agree.
It's unnecessary.
Now, what else have you got?
Let me get it up. Oh yeah, I'll mention this briefly. So someone got a £150 fine for parking in a no parking zone. But the thing is, when they parked there, it was a parking zone, and then the employees turned up and painted a no parking zone whilst the car was there. That's when the person got the fine. The fine got dismissed because when she parked it, there was no parking zone.
So painted around it. So she appealed. She appealed.
Yeah, she appealed.
And did she win?
Yep.
That's good. Right. Just right on time. At 2 minutes past 10, it is now time for us to go to New York. And who is there? Good morning, Melissa.
Good morning, Keith and Max.
How are you?
you?
Yes, he's upping the sound a little bit so we can hear you. Now, I'm fascinated by the fact that each week you come on, that from your look and the way you do your hair and so on, you've got a different persona. Each week is a different Melissa.
Really?
Indeed.
I just always thought I was me.
Well, of course, once you get cracking in your personality, that doesn't change one little bit. But the looks change from week to week. Absolutely wonderful.
Oh, well,
Absolutely
thank
wonderful.
you. Thank you. Is that a new hat?
Well, it's not totally new, but I did brush it off because we've had a bit of sun here for a change. So it's come out just for the summer months.
Very nice. How you doing, Max?
Doing very well. Thank you. You?
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Are you doing well?
I'm doing well, and I have my sign. I'm good.
Keep it calm. Keep it calm. Keep it calm.
And we're about to fill this. It's going to be a good morning.
Oh, yes. The pussycat mug.
Actually, it's Van Gogh cat. Can you see that?
Yes.
Starry Night, Starry Night, and then Van Gogh, little beard.
Oh yeah, I see it.
That self-portrait he made plus Starry Night. Yeah. So there you go. A little bit of culture on Mirador.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We need it with us earthy lot here. We've just been watching a little bit of the documentary, and we were watching the raft race, which takes place this Sunday on the River Ouse. And in the raft race, all sorts of organizations enter a raft, and then they try to destroy one another before they even get past the starting line. I mean, it's quite a sight. They throw flower bombs and squirt water and all sorts of things. And each year, people try to find out different ways to try and sink the opposition. And they've got like 6 or 7 miles to go down to New Haven to the finish. So
Are these children or adults?
Is it what? Sorry?
Are these children or adults?
Oh, adults, of course. You wouldn't get children behaving that way, would you?
As the rafts go down the river, we throw things at them like tomatoes and stuff.
It's quite an event. Not as big as some of the. Now, it does seem to me, in the past, that you have reported on some rather major sort of regatta type things that take place on your river. Remind us of the things that happen throughout the year on the Hudson.
Well, we've got kayaking and sailboats and jet skis and big tanker trucks tanker ships. That big, huge tanker or whatever they want to call it that goes from New York City up to upstate New York. It carries lots of garbage from New York City. I don't know what other events happen on the Hudson River, Keith.
But you
Truth
did
be
actually
told.
report. You did report on one specific event. I recall 3 or 4 years ago. What was that?
Well, there was a fly pass from the Air Force.
Ah, yes, that's right. Yes, it was a fly
It
pass.
wasn't quite in the river, though. Hopefully.
Well, I think you were standing somewhere close to the river, were you?
Oh,
Is that
I
what
may
I
have been
remember it as a
standing near the river.
event? Well, talking about fly pass,
You know, maybe I might have been drinking a lot during that event and forgot about it.
Oh dear, no, surely not. Talking about fly pass, bring us up to date on Connor's fortunes and career and so on. But just remind people who haven't seen Melissa before. Her son Connor is about to join the U.S. Navy as a pilot, and is likely to find himself in this part of the world pretty soon. So, how is Connor doing, and what events took place in his life this past week?
Pertaining to the Navy, we're waiting for a decision as to when he's going to begin, and we'll find out about that in October. So he's got a couple of months. He's writing a novel. He's writing science fiction. It turns out could be a very, very good novel, and certainly very great short stories. And he's training physically. He runs a couple of miles every day, does karate. And so he's preparing for his new life as a pilot.
Right.
And,
Now, training every day. What sort of physical requirements are there for being a pilot in the U.S. Navy?
It's really quite extensive. They have to go through survival training. In case a pilot were to either eject or crash land and survive, they have to be able to survive in hostile territory. So the training is extremely extensive when he does begin, but he has to start out with a certain level of physical fitness before he even enters officer training. And so what he does for that is a lot of running as a pilot, a lot. And you have to also be physically fit to handle the G-forces as well in those jets. So really pilots, as opposed to a captain on a ship, really has a very vigorous levels of physical fitness required.
So does he say, "Mom, I'm off," and off he goes running each morning?
Actually, he runs like about 9-10 o'clock at night. He finds it very, very calming.
Nightbird.
I don't know. I'm sleeping when he gets back. I don't know what happened. I assume he's running.
Right, now, how about your life this past week? In the last 7 days since we've seen you, bring us up to date on that.
Well, I'm planning for my trip to Italy.
Right. Tell us about the trip to Italy. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Tell us what it's all about.
Well, I'm flying into Naples from New York, and meeting my partner in crime in Naples, and then we're going to go to an island off of Naples, about an hour off of Naples, called Ischia.
Right.
And,
yes.
they have the thermal baths they're famous for, and there's a castle that's off. It's just absolutely gorgeous, beautiful. And so there's going to be lots of sightseeing and beach going and swimming and another world. So I'm very excited. And then we'll tour Naples, Pompeii, and get to see some of the street sights and the street food. So what do we have? We've got pizza in Naples. We've got sfogliatelle. Oh, such a great pastry. Oh my God. Anyway, it started in Naples. Naples is famous. They call it sfogliatelle. Well, in New York, we call it sfogliatelle. Okay, that's it, sfogliatelle. And New York Italian is very different than Italian. And what else? What else are they famous for? Eggplant Parmesan. So it'll be a gelato. Gonna have the gelato. So excited.
So why did you? Was this quite random that you decided on Naples and the island?
Well, my partner in crime gave me a choice of either Naples or Sicily, and I chose Naples only because I thought that it's my first trip to Italy. It might be a little bit easier. So,
Yes, and it's nice to go to mainland Italy. Your first trip to
right,
Italy.
right, exactly. It's just there's a direct flight from New York to Naples. It's about 9 hours. So
Right.
I know you
I
don't
mean, Naples
understand
is
that
a
it's
pretty
coming from
major
the
city.
UK. I'm sorry, Keith?
Naples is a pretty major city. I mean,
Right.
to me, I'm not terribly fond of Naples, but to me, it is a city. In other words,
Yeah.
it's throbbing with industry and people in the streets surging through and so on. I mean, there's nothing sedate about Naples at all.
Right. We'll go to Pompeii when we're there. We're only going to be in Naples for 2 days. We're going to be in Ischia most of the time. So
Right.
it's beautiful. Then
Well-
we're gonna pop over to Capri to visit a couple of friends, and there you go. It'll be so much fun.
Right. I hope that you enjoy Pompeii. I've been there about 3 times, I think. And each time you find something new, of course, because it is not a small town. I mean, it's what's saved from it is quite substantial and quite interesting. And of course, there are other famous figures that they uncovered from the ash that were caught fleeing the town and just simply didn't get away. They were overcome. But one of the amusing things is that I took my grandsons there when they were relatively small, sort of seven or 8 or whatever. And because it was a port and multilingual, a lot of the stuff is in signs. And the sign to the brothel is carved in the road, and it's a man's penis. And my 2 grandsons stood there while the guide, who was a quite attractive young lady, kept on describing how sailors and so on would find their way to the local cat house, as it were. And she kept on saying penis, and they kept on giggling.
How do you say that in Italian? I've not studied that word.
Well, I don't think
Maybe I should.
It doesn't need any translation when you're looking at a carving in the road.
Oh gosh, I should warn my partner in crime.
The other thing that I learned there,
Of all the sites, we're talking about the penis on the road. Okay, go ahead.
yeah, is what do you call it? Where the games took place, right? That's quite well preserved too. And in talking to the guides and so on, what I hadn't realised was that they treated the games with gladiators and so on, much the way that we do with football teams. They would turn up in the local league and have at one another and go away sort of 5-3. We killed 5 of yours and you killed 3 of ours, and that's the way that they actually looked at their sport in those days, which was, as you know, it was pretty damn bloody and ended up in fatalities. All sorts. So when you actually get into that amphitheater, I'll be interested for you to come back and tell me what sort of feeling you have, because I had a very prickly feeling of standing where men had battered men to death and fought tigers and that sort of thing. It's quite an interesting feeling. I'll be interested to see how you feel about it.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting. Eventually, I will make my way to Rome on another trip, perhaps. And a friend of mine, I don't know if I ever told you the story about the Colosseum I didn't
I
tell you
don't
the
think
story.
so, but you haven't told
I'll
everybody who's watching.
Okay. Well, hopefully there aren't any Italian officials listening. I was sitting with a friend of mine and my son, and my son at the time was very much into Roman history, wanted to dress up like a gladiator. I told him it really wouldn't be appropriate in school. And anyway, my friend said to us, "Hold on one moment, I'll be right back." And she came back with a box and gave it to Connor as a gift. It was a brick from the Colosseum.
Oh. Wow. Has he still got it?
Yes, it's in the closet.
Oh dear. Yes. Well, if you watch it,
It's illegal. It's illegal.
oh yes, yes. Oh,
Apparently that's a big problem with the Great Wall of China as well. People keep taking the bricks.
Oh,
they should do what they did. Is the Berlin Wall? Is a lot of it was concrete, so people just mixed concrete and broke it up into little bits and then sold it as bits of the wall. Most of it is destroyed, and that which was left, you couldn't tell the difference. Okay, so Italy is very much looming. I hope that you're going to be able to check in with us from Italy, because we'll be very interested in getting your reactions there. So how's the rest of the week panned out?
working very hard, a lot of overtime. I went into the city a lot. It's very, very hot here. Really hot. So those hot days you had, we have them all the time now.
Yeah, well,
We only had 2 major ones.
yeah.
So yeah, we have it all the time. Well, we're on the same latitude as Naples.
Oh, right. Yeah, you're quite a bit south for us. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you don't think about it, but it's true. Yeah. And you're north.
we're-
I don't even think about that.
We're probably on the same latitude as Canada.
Right. Oh, your weather still is very, very nice, very mild, very it's
Yeah,
not-
we don't normally have extremes, but we did this past week. Although the experts are warning that because of climate changes, we may well find that once every 2 or 3 years now that we get this sort of very hot summers, which we've. There was an article yesterday in one of the papers that said this has been the driest July since 1911.
That's random. Since 1911.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
so-
I understand that sometimes you're going to get these extremes, but the problem is if they continue, our problem here, we have a lot of very violent weather. It's the heat, right, which causes
Yeah.
a lot of that, and the moisture. Well, I guess they call it that greenhouse effect, right? And so we get things like tornadoes and 6 feet of flooding and hurricanes that are Category 5. The Category 5 hurricanes used to come sporadically down south. But what's happening, what you start to see now, is you start to see a Category 1 bloom into a Category 5 within 1 day, whereas prior it might take a week. They get very violent very quickly. So that really is the big issue, is the violent weather that we experience here. And we'll start to probably experience, and then they've got the rainy day flooding in Florida because the sea levels are rising.
We do sometimes get tornadoes here. They're very small and extremely rare.
Right. Yeah, you don't have the heat that we have. We have such terrible heat in the US. You may not think about it, you think of snow. It's very hot here in a lot of parts of the country.
New York has had some big snowstorms as well. Not
We'll have
recently,
big
but
snowstorms. They've gotten less and less over the years. So, and the summers are hotter, definitely, as I recall. I mean, we used to have snows that constantly having 4 feet, 4 feet of snow. Like,
4 feet.
Feet.
What?
Yeah, it's
No, we
crazy.
don't get that though. That's crazy. I don't know why
It
it's
is,
so.
it's
hot and
very,
so
very
cold.
crazy. It can be very, very crazy here. That's really what it is. There are extremes. I remember there was I remember, I think it was 24 inches of snow, no big deal. And I spoke to my partner in crime about it, and he was just 24 inches. Yeah, no big deal.
Wow. Yeah, I think our mind boggles at that sort of thought.
If we get 2 inches of snow, the entire country shuts down. Everything shuts.
We do very well, actually. Really, the snow trucks are out constantly. The minute it starts to snow, they're sanding. They do a really great job.
Keith, have we always been this wimpy when it comes to snow, or is
no? We get less and less. I mean, I've been in Lewis where many winters where we've had snow. We haven't had any really, other than just a smattering for the last 3 years. So it's changing. But I was a little boy, in 1948 when.
Oh, I thought you were going to say yesterday. Go ahead.
Well, I'm still a little boy, as you well know.
Yes.
that was the worst winter in almost 100 years that we suffered, and I can remember it. And I can remember snow drifts taller than my. I was staying. It was just after the war. I was staying with my grandparents in the country, and we would go out to the farms to get logs and things to put on the fires, and I can remember these huge snowdrifts, towering snowdrifts, and I've never known them in Britain since. And that was.
Do you remember how tall the snow was? Like, did it get to feet?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm talking about dwarfing a 6 foot tall person. Looking up at it, I made it be quite small, but I was with adults, and we did have those sort of winters. But more and more, we've got warmer and warmer, and so we don't experience them anymore, or not very often, or unless you're in Scotland.
It's interesting talking about climate change, because the question is what to do about it. Is there something we could do? I don't really know. I mean, I'm not a scientist.
I think people seem to forget about innovation. There will be some sort of invention that comes along that can reverse it. We already have a good one, potentially. Graphene can be extracted from the atmosphere. Carbon capture devices that can turn the carbon in the atmosphere into graphene. And these machines, theoretically can get so big that it would completely reverse the effects of climate change, and potentially even go, if it's used too much, the potential is there to go to an ice age.
Ooh.
If we invest in these machines too much, but enough,
You mean the machines would turn us into an ice age?
Yes, from taking the carbon from the atmosphere.
Wow.
If we use it
sounds
too
like
much.
something humans would do.
Yeah. But there's the thing, people seem to forget about innovation when talking about this climate change issue.
Yeah, I mean, presumably somebody got to these machines first. This would be a great weapon in a war, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
You freeze your opposition to death.
Although they have recently been talking about reversing climate change by blocking out the sun. Have you seen anything from this? But I swear to God, this is true. I thought it was ridiculous, but people like Bill Gates have been talking about it, and like the World Economic Forum. I need to look it up more. I saw it briefly.
Yes.
How do we? So what creates it, and what could we do to lessen it? I mean, it doesn't have to be blocking the sun, folks. I mean, it could be something simple. I don't know. I think I'm just going to talk very generally here, not necessarily about climate change. Just something I've been thinking about a lot lately is simplification, is trying to simplify my individual life. I found I've become so consumed with online shopping, consumption, which really doesn't bring happiness. It just brings more consumption.
Yes.
And yeah, it's seeking happiness in some form of buying something online. And so recently, actually yesterday, there was an event that happened. And I don't know if you were impacted by it, but there's a reason why I have a new email address. I was hacked, and so were my contacts. People got Viagra ads from me. Speaking of penises.
Oh God. Well, we
So-
got that.
Yeah, so I don't think Keith, I presume you didn't get it, or maybe you did and you were happy. I don't know. But that's why I have a new email address. And what happened was I got so upset that I removed that account. I deleted it. I deleted my life essentially too.
I know that's the problem, isn't it?
Everything. And then I realized how much my life was lived online. And so I'm going to make a push to simplify. I even stopped cookies, all that other stuff. So I really can't shop online anymore.
Do you
No,
know
and
how you got
I mean, it's not a bad thing because there's so much junk. I look back at the junk I buy. I'm like, you kidding, Melissa? Really?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. So maybe simplification is not such a bad thing in this whole scheme of climate change, everything else, because the consumption, it's the producing of all this crap, right? Anyway,
Do you know how you got hacked?
no,
No.
but I'd like to meet the hacker.
Well, we got banned from Facebook for a little bit because of a hack, and someone ended up starting posting links on the Mirador account with Telegram links on how to buy illegal guns.
I mean, I don't really go on Facebook. Oh, that's another thing. I guess it was maybe 2 weeks ago. My messenger was hacked. You got that link, right?
Yes.
I think it was a porn link, Keith.
Yes.
Did you
Well,
enjoy it? Did you enjoy it?
yeah, well, I actually didn't open it because you warned me. And what I've discovered is if you actually open these things, is you actually put yourself in a position of possibly being part of them.
Yeah.
Right.
So you very kindly warned me about this, and I avoided doing anything. But
So I no longer have a Facebook account or Messenger. I just have WhatsApp. And
right now,
one email address that nobody has, except keep people like the banks.
yeah.
That's
the thing that worries me about all these, WhatsApp and so on, is I had WhatsApp, and then they sent me a message saying you can't have WhatsApp anymore. You've got to go to chat. So I dutifully went to chat, and then somebody said, "No, but hang on, I'm staying with WhatsApp. Can you please give me your WhatsApp account?" So I went into to renew WhatsApp, and it said, "But you can't do it on this phone number." Which, I mean, then I get frustrated and I think, bugger it, I am simply not. And I'm of the firm opinion that that those people who develop a lot of this stuff are actually shooting themselves in the foot. They're making things so complicated, and everything can get sort of involved in itself. That in the end, what we're saying is to hell with it. Don't want it, as indeed you have with Facebook.
We had the same
Right.
issue on Tuesday at the cafe. We had a similar issue.
Yeah.
Trying to get in because it was like, oh, you can't use this phone number; it's already been used. But then you try to put in the phone number, it says a not valid phone number. It was strange. Wouldn't work. Took ages just to get started.
Now let's get a bit serious because you just held up your keep calm. Yesterday the Federal Reserve, your central bank, went 0.75 of a percentage point upping interest rates. Now you are at the heart of American economic activity in your job. How's this going to work? Because this is the second time in 2 months that they've done it. And I know that the effort is to try and cap inflation, that would show me that there's almost panic stations in terms of inflation. The other thing is that there is in the business pages of the Daily Mail this morning is a warning that America is now officially in a recession. So can you highlight and enlighten us on those two things in terms of your economy?
Well, I think the 3/4 point increase in interest rates, or a 75 basis point increase, was expected. I mean, all the activity by the Federal Reserve is just it's too late really to stop a recession. And I'm going to talk in very general terms because obviously there are a lot of other nuances to this. It's an effort to stop all of the crazy pent-up demand that we had from the last 2 years. So when you have consumers out of control spending, prices rise. It's supply and demand. So it's an effort to stop people from buying so damn much, pardon my French. And so they raise interest rates. It's a housing frenzy. So when you raise the interest rates, now you're going to start to hopefully lower the consumption and lower the prices. It's an effort to do that. We'll see how it works. But it's great for savers. Well, I mean, not that they're going to give you a great rate, but not great for home buyers, better for savers. I mean, we used to have my savings account, just to talk a little bit personal, savings rate of it was a 3% interest rate, which is fine. If you have a lot of money, you can make some good money that way. And then, we had this push over like maybe 6 years ago, lower interest rates, lower interest rates, lower interest rates to boost an economy artificially ahead of the election. Lower the interest rates to practically zero, which hurts pensioners. It hurts because it hurts fixed income investments like the pensions, right? Treasuries, right? It's very complex, but that's overall what they're trying to do is to lower the consumption. People are just in a shopping frenzy. They got the credit cards out, boom, 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 boom. What are we doing? Stop. Stop. Calm down, everybody. Remain calm. Everybody should have this sign when they're online shopping. Stop. Anyway, that was my rant for the day. That really is what it's about. As far as a recession, it's not supposedly supposed to be a very harsh one. What happens is if people stop consuming so much, yes, demand goes down, the economy starts to, contract, and it's called a recession. Oh, well, we'll come back. We always do.
Yes. But the question of interest rates is it does affect people who are spenders. Are you seeing evidence that it's working? Because they've had to do it 2 months in a row.
Yeah, a little bit.
It didn't work the first time.
I'll tell you what it is. It's the summer months and everybody's buying and, going on vacation to Italy and things like that. So they're buying a lot. It's the summer months and everybody wants to have fun. It has had an impact. The last interest rate hike did have an impact on housing. Housing is starting to soften. New construction starting to lessen. You'll start to see more inventory. Prices are more steady. They haven't really dropped. So we'll see. Maybe this might create a drop because of interest rates. It's going to stop people from buying. It has. So yeah, it has had an impact.
So it's working in your view? Yeah,
I think it's working. I mean, it's the problem is when it starts to impact the labor market and there start to be layoffs and things like that. Yeah. So that's really one of the big issues that you start to see. So I think they're trying to do it as well. I don't think 75 basis points is gentle, but I just think that this is probably going to be it for a while. Just get them over with. Get it over with, especially before Christmas. Get it over with. And have everybody calm down after COVID. See, because people didn't go out and buy a lot of things during COVID, right?
Yeah.
Now they're going crazy. Hey, celebrate, celebrate. That's really what it is. It's psychology. The market is psychology. The economy is psychology. So, and that's a very obviously general view. It's a lot more complex than that, certainly. There's a lot of market manipulation. I know about that. Anyway.
Yeah. Now, you know, having left Reuters some years ago, I'm not as intimate with the economic activity as I was while we were working together. But in the debate between Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak for leadership of the Conservative Party, the issue of obviously the economy came up, but Liz Truss, when we were talking about whether they should lower taxes or not lower taxes, accused Sunak of being old school. In other words, you follow the tried and tested rules, but there should be a lot of innovative thinking about this. What's your view? Should there be innovative thinking, or should we stick with the tried and tested?
Innovative thinking in terms of taxes?
Well, of the whole approach to economy. You know, we get inflation, we raise interest rates in the central bank. I mean,
what kind of innovation is she talking about? Was she doing general, or was she? You need to give me some specifics here to see if that innovation would work.
Yes. Well,
I'm a tried and true person. I'll say that up front. I'm a tried and true investor. I believe in investing in my country's economy. It may go down, but generally speaking, over time, if you look at the charts, trajectory is always up. The Depression took about 25, but that was in the 1929 that it began. It took maybe 25 years to recoup. Think about what we were back then and what we are now. It's only gone up. That's it. If the U.S. economy goes, we're all done. The U.S. economy is never going to stop. It's called basic greed, basic human greed. It's not going away.
Yeah.
It's not going away. We'll come back. We'll come back. The question is, how much do you want to tax people?
0.
Max already said earlier, I said to him, if you were Prime Minister, what would you do? And he said, cut taxes by 50%. No question.
Tax. But the problem is, when we go to tax your income bracket, then you start screaming. Well, right? We're going to start to tax pensions now. No!
Yeah. I'm personally of the opinion that taxation is theft.
Well, I mean, I don't mind it if it's used properly.
But it never will be, and never is.
Like for example, you know, like we were talking about snow. They removed the snow immediately. Schools are really good. I see my tax dollars at work. I do. I'm okay with it. I'll deal with that, right? I want to see my tax dollars at work. So it's a little bit tougher at the federal level. So, but at the local level, I can see it. So I'm okay with it.
Accepting your point about, yes, eventually it all works and we come out of a recession. But I mean, it surprised me a little bit because I haven't been watching the quarter by quarter. As I recall, the international standard is if you get 3 sessions where you're down, 3 sessions where the economy is down, is that then becomes a depression or a recession? Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe it's 2, but yeah. Right. I mean, we'll come back. It's supposed to be a mild recession. But I guess they're looking at it, some are looking at it as the necessary one, because we have to slow it down. The prices are out of control, folks. 8% inflation, 6 to 8% or more. That's crazy. That's crazy.
People are saying, sorry.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead, Max.
You said a minute ago that people are saying it's going to be a mild recession. Do you really believe it's going to be mild? Because I certainly don't.
I do believe it's going to be mild. Because we're coming into it with a very strong labor market, very strong. Companies still looking for people. They may contract their business a bit, but they still, and then maybe they might just not hire so much. But it's been it's not like we're going into this with a very weak labor market where we really would hurt labor. But I think that there's still this pent up demand. It's just being tempered. So people are going to still go out and keep buying, but they just have to just calm it down so that prices can stabilize. There's a really out of control. It's just out of control. I just can't even believe it. I just and a lot of it honestly is opportunistic. Oh, yeah, we have to raise our rates by 10%. Why? Are your costs rising by 10%? In many cases, no, it's just opportunistic. Oh, inflation's out of control. We got to raise our prices now. Or maybe your costs aren't going up, but we got to raise our prices. Yeah. So a lot of it is that.
I don't know. In this country, we have what's called the pound shop. Do you have the dollar store still? Is that still around?
Oh, you mean the $5 store?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The pound shops here, literally the majority of things are pound shops.
Pound shop. Okay.
Pound shop. Yeah. The majority if you go into the pound shop today, the majority of it is over £1. You can get things in there that are £20. Now, I can literally remember when everything was £1.
Perhaps the concept of a pound shop is strange to Melissa. So explain to her what a pound shop is.
Oh, well, we understand because we have dollar stores.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Everything
but it's not $1 anymore. And I'm going to be very honest with you folks. There's just a lot of junk in those stores. It's a lot of junk created by slave labor in Asia. We need to stop. We need to stop. If you're going there for food or for the basic necessities, I get it. But come on. I mean, I want a little decoration in my living room from the dollar store. It's going to look like crap. Stop.
Can you get food in the dollar store?
I'm sorry?
Can you get food in the dollar store?
Can I get what at the dollar store? Food. No, not. I'm just talking about maybe cleaners or toilet paper or things like that. Yeah. The household goods, and it's cheap crap anyway. I get it, but if you don't have a lot of money, I get it.
You can get milk at ours and sweets. That's about it when it comes to food.
Right. Yeah. But some of the junk that you see there, I just marvel at it. I'm thinking, really? I can't even go into it. There's a terrible smell when you walk in. It's like chemicals, like I'm going to get into the cancer.
We have the exact same thing. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's just toxic. Guys, stop.
Well, to make profits, you can now buy cloves in the pound store. So you can buy cloves, and nothing will ever cost £1. It's always like £8 to £10.
Yeah, it's just false advertising. Ridiculous. And a lot of it looks like garbage. You wear that I got that at the pound store. Oh yeah, you look snazzy. So you might as well go buy on consignment or at the thrift shop. You get better deals. So somebody throwing out their Chanel bag, right? And hey.
Yeah, Chanel bag, put in stuff from the pound shop.
Along with that T-shirt, that a 2-pound T-shirt.
Okay, Melissa. Now, are you going into the city today? Are you going into the office today?
I am going into the office. It's very interesting. Corporate America, they're realizing that people don't want to go back, and they're not going back. So they're being they're a little tougher now. The subsidiary that I support at Franklin is talking about a 2-day a week instead of a 3. They call it hoteling, where you essentially go and you book a room, with a computer. You wouldn't have your own little cubicle or office if you only come in 2 days a week. But what's happening is overall, and not just my company, but overall in corporate America, they're sitting in a lot of empty, very, very expensive real estate in the city. And so they want to sort of justify having this big empty building by bringing people in. The problem is it's not a really great reason for the person coming in and commuting for 3 hours and spending $500 a month to come in, right? And leaving their kids in daycare until 6, 7 o'clock at night. It doesn't justify it just because you have an empty building, right? We're still getting our jobs done at home. It's all done. It's seamless. But they have empty buildings that they want to fill and justify. I got to commute 3 or 4 hours a day and spend $500 a month to fill your silly little building. It doesn't make sense. So there's a lot of shifting and change going on in corporate America. They have to change their approach, because what's happening is if you're not paying a really good salary, you're going to be poached from another company. Another company is going to come and take you, especially if you're good at what you do, and they're going to give you flexibility and the money. So if you're not giving the money, then you need to give the flexibility. So, in many ways, employees have an upper hand.
Yes. So. One of the things that I said to Max when he first came in this morning is that we've got train strikes going on intermittently at the moment.
Why?
Because they're greedy.
The RMT, the rail unions, are one of the more powerful unions, and they will look for any reason to strike. But their argument is that pay and conditions have got to meet the rising cost of everything, and their members must have parity and so on.
Parity with what?
Well, parity with what they would see as the fat cats, because corporate Britain has not been terribly backward in awarding pretty hefty pay rises to executives, CEOs and management and so on and so forth. So their argument is, you do it, the workers should be able to do it. But the thing that he said this morning was, because Liz Truss has said in her debating bit on telly that she is going to take on the unions and try and take even more of their power away. So that the head of the RMT, the Railways Union, Mick Lynch, has said, you take us on at your peril, because I'll call a general strike. But I said to Max, I wonder whether the unions have got to start looking at an alternative to strikes, because actually, if they strike now, is the number of people working from home, the number of people that can work from home, the amount of work that can be done not in corporate offices is huge.
Start to lay off.
They're losing their power in striking, and we'll look at other things. I have no idea when I say other things, but needs must. This is when people start to get together and start to chat about, we can't do it this way, let's do it another.
With the train.
See, here's the thing about strikes. It really should be a last resort, but it seems to be a common practice in Britain. When I was there, they were striking. When I was there before, they were striking. You're getting silly now. You're going to become obsolete, because people are going to just, I've had it. I'm working from home. We're done. You're not going to have parity with a CEO. You're not. You're collecting tickets. You're not running a company. And while, yes, I do believe that the CEO salaries shouldn't be that exorbitant, I get it. We get ridiculous at some point. There needs to be balance. But from a union perspective, and I've been in unions and I like them, there was a wonderful degree of protection from harassment and things of that nature when I was in the business and I was in a union. But our unions always held the position that we have to work for the benefit of the company, because if we don't, we're all gone in layoffs. And your unions need to start to realize that they're going to become obsolete. They're going to lose their jobs. And why are you constantly striking? That's a last resort. It's going to become so commonplace. People are just not going to want to deal with the rails at all. I'll forget it. I don't need that. I'll work from home. So guess what? You're gonna have fewer hires as people retire. You're gonna weaken yourself. You're weakening the system and then thereby weakening yourself. Stop it. That's foolish. You're hurting your membership in the long run.
Yes.
Well, with that, actually, yeah, people are going to start getting bored of them, and I'm starting to get bored of them because I have to use them. Now, instead of getting the train and the bus, I'm just going to be riding my motorbike here now, which is
Right.
going to be
There can be
worse.
alternatives.
Yeah, and people always hold up public transport as this environmentally friendly thing, and then they strike all the time. So I'm just going to be driving to work.
Right.
I can't be bothered.
Yep. People are going to find alternatives. They're not going to tolerate it. So you
I mean,
have to have a balance when you go into the negotiating room. You have to also look at your own jobs, and you have to look at the industry. You have to look at you can't. It's like cutting off your nose to spite your face, and you can't do these kinds of things. You're going to hurt the system that's supporting you ultimately. So, I know they want to be all big and strong and everything. You're weakening yourself, really.
We
Yeah.
saw in the papers the other day that the union boss is on £100,000 a year salary, and he is living in a council flat.
And
That's
who-
paid
and
for
who
by
is
the
this?
government.
Who is this?
The union.
This is the union head.
Yeah, one of the union bosses is on
I
£100,000.
don't begrudge somebody that kind of salary, especially if they're their head, because
No, but the problem is,
it's not much of a salary in my world. But at the same time, you can't be crying poverty either, right?
well, prices aren't as expensive here as they are in America, especially in big cities like New York. But the issue is he's on £100,000 a year and living in a council flat.
Right. So you get subsidized. So, I mean, here you'll make $1 million and you don't get subsidized. So you're still ahead here. But he's the head of the union. He needs to represent, right? But he's, and it's just, he's going to price himself out and his members out of the whole business.
Well,
It's going to get to the point where it's going to be so expensive, no one's going to want to travel.
Yeah, it's a real pain, pain for me.
And I love rail. I like hopping on that train, taking out my book, reading, relaxing, looking at the river. It's a great commute. So I'm all for rail. I don't want to sit on the the West Side Highway. I don't want to do it for 2 hours. Trying to weave in and out of traffic. I like the rails, but let's keep the rails running. Let's not destroy them. Yeah, we're getting silly. I mean, a ticket taker shouldn't be paying that much. It shouldn't be paid that much.
No.
Give me a break.
One of the things is the train from where I live to Lewis is about 28 minutes. It's a very short train journey. But when I need to get the bus, it's a 2-hour trip each way.
Right.
Instead of a 28-minute train journey.
Yeah.
So it's a 4-hour round trip to get to work. It's a real pain just because the trains are striking.
Right. Yeah. I listen. I want everybody to have good pay and good living standards. It's a good thing because it helps the economy in general. But I think the striking issue is just a constant. It weakens your position. That's the one thing here. It's rare. They don't strike a lot here, and the unions, admittedly, are. Is Keith okay?
Yeah, Keith's fine.
Okay.
Yes, when you two are having an chat, I tend to start to think about what we're going to do next.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So
yes,
we can do something
on.
next to
I'm
keep
very
you
happy
awake,
with
Keith.
the chat you're having. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, what would you like to speak about, Keith? We want to try to keep you engaged.
Well, I've had a pretty heavy morning, and as you know, I can be full of frippery. So I want to know how the work in the kitchen is going on the food that Connor is preparing and how his drink is coming.
Well, I'm looking right now at the fermenter, It's in my living room. Anyway, we're talking about maybe next week it being finished, and then we'll put it into the keg in the refrigerator. How did my life become all about beer? I really don't know.
Because you went to Harvey's in Lewis and you got hooked.
Anything new from Miles?
No, as a matter of fact, I saw him in the street the other day, and I turned around and tried to catch him, and I couldn't. But I will spend this weekend making sure that everything has got through to him, and urging him to give us a response. I'll say that Connor is at that corner where he needs the answers and the expertise.
Yes. Yeah, he's talking about making a British bitter while I'm in Italy.
All right. You know, but he was also making various foodstuffs this past week. How's he getting along with that? Have you got a varied diet from what he's doing in the kitchen?
He made a very, very good eggplant parmesan. It's delicious. Then he made chili, he made spaghetti, he made bolognese sauce. Very, very good. Everything was delicious. He makes a very good tomato sauce. Excellent. Very basic. Makes excellent pizza. He seems to be moving back into the goulash spätzle. Is that how you pronounce it? That German cuisine. Well, we'll see how it goes. I don't know what's it's always an adventure every week.
Yeah. Well, his goulash, we've still got. I'll try and find his last effort in the archives because we've got his last attempt at goulash, and actually it was quite good, as I recall.
It was very good, very good. He's a very good cook. He really is. Very talented. You didn't get that from me.
Oh, I'm sure you're not a bad cook at all. Let's face it.
I'm not a bad cook at all because I don't cook.
Well, how did you nourish him through the years to where he's going to become a Navy pilot?
Salads.
I was going to say, don't tell me pizza, for God's sake.
Pizza, yeah. At the local shop.
Okay, well, it brought us up to 10:59, 11 o'clock. I'm happy to say we've been with you for an hour. We always appreciate seeing you, and particularly with this new full-bodied hair look. Oh, it's very sexy. You see, she's just done it to say to me, see, you missed a trick when you didn't actually express your deep love for me.
Sorry, my partner in crime is taking over.
I know. I don't want to hear about his partner. He's a very decent bloke, unfortunately.
He's so cute. If he's listening, you're adorable. You know who you are.
Well, that's a love story that has to be told sometime. All right, darling. Where are you next week? Are you able to join us?
Yeah, I'll be in New York, and then the following week I'll be in. I might be in Naples. We'll see. I'll try to reach out when I'm in Italy.
Yeah.
We are not going to be here in the hotel on Friday. We're going to be out. Okay. We're doing an outside broadcast for the whole week next week.
Okay. Sounds good. So let me know if you want me to join.
Yeah.
Oh, we want you to join. The program content won't alter. It's just that we're going to be doing it from the precinct, which is, for all intents and purposes, our town square. And you may recall that we did this, I think, last year.
Is that where they burn people?
Well, the nice thing is when people walk past, we say to them, "Come and sit down." I mean, we do that in the hotel, but it's going to be easier in the precinct. So be prepared to perhaps talk to people who.
The precinct, is that the police station?
No.
No, we call it a different name.
We're going to the precinct. Are they going to book you?
Yeah, actually, you come to think of it, I'm sure that our founding fathers did not watch American cop shows where it's always the precinct. You're quite right.
Yeah, it sounds like you're going to have a wild week. To end up in the precinct.
Yeah, the precinct is the town centre.
Okay. That's great.
So, Melissa, you're getting some sort of a feel for the things that are interesting to our viewers now. So just do make a note as you go along of the things you do in the week. Strangely enough, it's the ordinary things that people like to know. How do you get to work? I mean, somebody said the other day, I forget we were talking about transport, and somebody said, "Oh yeah, Melissa, for instance, gets on the train and goes into New York on the train," which you do. And it's those sort of things. Is how do we live? How do we get about? What do we eat? What do we think? But of course, we want your serious side on the economy and so on, which is very, very key to what's on people's minds at the moment. As America goes, so goes the UK. So it's more important than ever for us to understand what is going down on the economy in the States. So you've been very, very informative this morning. Thank you.
So I can tell you about things like getting hacked with Viagra ads, going on the train, eating pizza. Yeah, I'll tell you all about it. Yay!
Absolutely. And we had Sarah Fitz-Hayes yesterday to do an interview for the art program, which we're going to start again next week. She's a delightful lady, very bubbly and so on. But she said that one of her big things is to come to New York and paint stuff in New York. So I said, well, what we'll do is we'll try and follow up on trying to get an airline to fly us out there so we can do 2 or 3 programs from New York. She liked that idea very much.
Well, that sounds great. I'd love to meet her.
Yeah. Well, one of the interesting things that she does is she paints things like Marmite and
we don't know we don't
banana splits here. And so on. Sorry?
She could paint matzo crackers.
Oh, that's it. That's the thing. She wants ideas for the things to paint. New York food.
How about if I could take some pieces of paper and she can paint like a dollar bill? There you go.
Well,
I don't know why I just thought of that. I think it's called counterfeiting, but that's okay.
Well, no, actually, what we can do is we'll get down to the machine that duplicates these things. Duplicate it. There we go. And we can all have stacks of them.
You'll definitely end up in the precinct.
But actually, just to finish off, I said to her, has she ever done a hot dog and the corner thing? And she said no. And I said, well, we need to get that done quickly because you tell me that they're disappearing.
Yes, they are. People really don't eat them in the city. They're more health conscious. You don't know what's in a hot dog.
It's like the English sausage. I will not eat any sausage other than the English sausage, which is 80% sawdust, 5% bread, a little bit of coloring, and at the end, a tiny little bit of meat.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, darling. It's lovely to have you with us. Have a good day. I know it's still very early in New York, and I hope we haven't got you up too early. But look forward to seeing you next.
Okay, I'm up anyway.
Toodles.
Toodles. Bye, Max. Bye, Mr. Keith. Have a great week.
Thank you.
And you.
Good. Well, it's 11:05. What is your recommendation? Do you think we should call it a day?
I think we've had a good day. Yeah,
we have. Yeah. Right. Okay. Then let's just have one. Well done, the energy companies. They're full of bright ideas to help their customers. Now they've made power so expensive that for an average house such as this, you can't afford to heat it. So you don't need appliances such as this. But that means you also don't need a fridge, because you can keep your groceries cool and fresh without it. The house is cold enough. Well done, chaps. Right, it's 11:06 on the
29th.
29th of July. I should put my spectacles on. 2022. This is Max Hurd and Keith Hayes. We've enjoyed being with you this morning. It's a nice mixed morning. We've done a lot of things. Been over to New York. We've scattered around our local area, and we picked out some of the less noticeable stuff from the papers, and even reviewed what the headlines are, gloom and doom though they are, for our own UK. See you next week, Monday, hopefully on location. And
where are we filming from?
From the precinct.
The precinct.
The precinct, which is the centre of Lewes. Well, it's not really. We are in the centre of Lewes, and the precinct is actually in the little township called Cliff, but it's where the shops have tended to move to. So it's where you get a lot more action than you do up here, and also there's a space for us to do it. So until next week, and hopefully our outside broadcasts for the week. Till then, toodle, toodle, toodle.